Good morning, everyone. Today we're talking about a development that immediately grabbed global attention. On November 14th, President Trump announced that the United States will conduct nuclear tests, a statement that hasn't been made in decades. Now, he didn't clarify whether this means actual detonations or technical tests, but the words alone sent shockwaves across diplomatic and financial circles. It's a mix of signaling strength, sending a message to rivals like Russia and China, and reminding the world that the U.S. is willing to step back into the nuclear conversation if necessary. Over the next few slides, we'll break down the background of this announcement, the reactions it sparked globally, the potential implications for international security, and what this means for the delicate balance of nuclear non-proliferation. Essentially, we're entering a moment where politics, strategy, and global security intersect. And it's one worth understanding in detail. So, on November 14th, President Trump made a pretty shocking statement while speaking to reporters on Air Force One. He said the United States will conduct nuclear tests like other countries. Now, he didn't give any details. He didn't say whether this means actual explosions or just technical evaluations. But the comment immediately raised concerns around the world. It's a very deliberate signal. It tells both allies and adversaries that the U.S. is willing to move away from decades of restraint if necessary. And because he didn't clarify exactly what kind of tests he meant, it creates this strategic ambiguity that leaves everyone guessing that uncertainty is part of the message. To understand why this matters, we need to look at what led up to this moment. At the end of October, Trump actually instructed the Pentagon to start preparing for nuclear testing, saying that other countries were getting ready to do the same. Then, a few days later, the Energy Secretary stepped in and tried to calm things down by saying these tests wouldn't involve detonating warheads. So right now, we have this gap between what Trump said publicly and what his own administration is signaling privately. It creates confusion, and in nuclear policy, confusion can be dangerous. So this background really sets the stage for why the announcement caused so much concern. Unsurprisingly, other nuclear powers responded almost immediately. Russia in particular made it clear that if the U.S. resumes nuclear testing, they will feel compelled to respond. That basically means the unofficial moratorium that's been in place for decades could unravel overnight. These reactions matter because nuclear policy isn't done in a vacuum. Every major power watches every move. And when one country signals it may test again, especially the U.S., it puts pressure on everyone else to rethink their own posture. So Trump's comments didn't just make headlines. They genuinely raised global tensions. If the U.S. were to restart nuclear testing, even in a limited way, the ripple effects would be huge. It could escalate military tension with Russia and China, potentially kickstart a new arms race, and undermine decades of work on global non-proliferation agreements. There is also the diplomatic side. Allies would have to recalibrate their own positions, and countries on the fence about nuclear development might take this as permission to move forward. So even though we don't yet know what type of testing the administration is talking about, the signal alone has already started shaping global behavior. That's how sensitive nuclear policy is. So overall, what we're seeing is Trump sending a very bold, very public message that the U.S. is prepared to revisit nuclear testing. But at the same time, his administration is walking a tightrope, trying to project strength without committing to something that could escalate quickly. Meanwhile, the rest of the world, especially Russia, is watching extremely closely and responding in real time. This situation really highlights how fragile global nuclear agreements are, and how a single statement from the U.S. president can shake up the entire international system. Right now, we're in a moment of uncertainty, and what happens next will depend heavily on how much of this is political signaling versus actual operational intent.